we're going on to the crease brushes, my favorites, and I have tons. And divas, I just need to mention this, all these brushes that I'm showing you are actually my personal ones. I have different ones for my clients. So this is just to tell you, especially you aspiring makeup artists, that you're gonna have to invest in your craft. Brushes are your friend. Invest in them. Invest in good brushes because they will last you a very long time. Some of these brushes I've had for yonks and they are still going strong because I invested in good brushes. So yeah, brushes are your friend, divas. Invest in them. So these, okay, where do I start? So these are all my blending brushes, and I'll try and talk about them as quickly as possible. Now we all know what blending brushes are. We use them to get into the crease. What's the crease? That is the crease, just above our eyeball. That socket right there, that's the crease, okay? So that's what we use these for, to get in there, to blend it out. Anything to do with the crease, we use the crease brush, okay? So we have domey looking crease brushes. So the nice big fluffy ones like this, you know, these big ones right here. What I tend to use these for is to, for example, when you have applied your color and you want to fade it out, I would go for one that's kind of wide and, you know, domey looking, you know, like this. And that is what I would use, you know, these ones. This is a smaller version of the wide, you know, fluffy crease brush. But what I tend to use these for is just to fade out the color, because these are nice and fluffy. The fluffier your crease brush, the smoother your transition, I promise you. So these fluffy, wider crease brushes are fantastic at blending out color. So that's what we use those for. We also have the ones that look more domish, okay? And they can be used for the same thing or to deposit color in the crease. Now, depending on your eyes, you know, how big your eyes are, you can go for a smaller crease or a bigger crease just to get into that, just in, you know, your socket right there. So the bigger ones, you know, it's what I say is that the smaller the brush, the more control you have, okay? So unless you have to, you know, maybe stick with the smaller brushes for inside the crease and then use your slightly bigger, fluffier ones to blend out your color. So once you get into the crease, so you've applied your color into the crease with a smaller dome brush, maybe something like this. So you've applied it and then you want to fade it out even more, then you're gonna go and grab something like this to blend it out, because this is wider and it's softer, okay? So this is wider and it's softer, so this is going to really help you achieve that flawless, you know, smoky look. So if you're going for a smoky eye, you need more than one crease color, okay, crease brush, I beg your pardon. Now we have these, so what I showed you just now is is a domey one, but a smaller domey one, and it's slightly more chiseled than these ones. So let me show you so you can see the difference. Okay. So this is wide and fluffy, as you can see, and this is more dome-like. Okay, so this is easier to put into the crease, whereas this is easier to use to fade out the edge of the color you've deposited into the crease. Catch my drift? Okay, so we also have flat blending brushes, divas. Now these flat blending brushes are perfect if you're trying to achieve that cut crease. This is what the flat blending brush looks like, and this one is from Morphe. As you can see, it's it's flat compared to, for example, this one, which is round, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute. But yeah, so if you're trying to create a cut crease but you don't want it to look too harsh, then you can use this. But even if you want it to look harsh, you can go in with a pencil to define that crease, and then you use this crease brush, just a flat one, to go over that line that you have created. Or you can just use this to deposit your color intensely, and because it's flat, it's easier to create that line. Okay, so this is a flat crease brush. Once again, this is a regular dome, well, a smaller version of the blending fluffy brush. So again, you can use this to just blend above you know, the edges of that color you've applied in your crease. However, because this is smaller, it's a smaller brush, it's going to give you that extra bit of control. Okay, so yeah, this is for blending out the edges. But you could also, if you're trying to apply color but you don't want too much of it, say in your crease or in your outer V, you could use this depending on the shape of your eye. However, I prefer to use it to fade out, because as you know, I've got small eyes anyway, so what am I going to use a big massive brush in my crease for? I use it to blend out. I prefer to use the bigger colors, the bigger brushes, to blend upwards, you know, use it to apply maybe my first transition color, you know, the ones that I just need to see a hint of it underneath. You know when we talk about smoky eyes, so you have the lighter color on top and the darkest on the lid. So that lightest color is what I tend to use those big brushes for, and then I use these to blend out. Okay, now if you want to get into the outer V of your eye and you don't want to use a pencil brush, and I'll show you the pencil brushes later, because back in the days, it was always suggested to use the pencil brush in the outer V, and that's what we did for many years. But then, you know, they created these, you know, really fabulous crease brushes that were very small and tapered and would blend out that outer V. So you apply the color, but you can control it more, because when you use the pencil brush, it deposits a whole lot more color, and you have to blend it a little bit more than you would if you were to use this kind of brush. So this is a crease brush, which is a blending brush. However, because it's small, you have more control. You can use it to deposit color in the outer V without there being too much color deposit. So you can build your color with this, and I promise you, if you use one of these, you're going to get a nice smooth transition of color. It's going to look so beautiful than if you use a pencil brush. But I'll show you a pencil brush in a minute, and then I'll compare the two so you know what I mean. Okay, yeah, I think that's it about crease brushes. Just to say that we have them in different shapes and sizes, and I'll just show you a few so that you can see what they look like. All different shapes and sizes. Just a few. So this is a dome looking crease brush, which is perfect to just deposit color right into that crease. And this is a slightly bigger version of that same brush. Does the exact same thing, it's just that it's slightly bigger. The smaller the brush, the smaller the control you have. This is another slightly smaller but more spread out tip, so it's kind of more flat at the end as opposed to tapered. And again, this is nice to fade the color upwards. For example, you know, the edge of your crease color, this will be perfect to fade it out. This is another dome blending brush, which is perfect for inside that crease. Perfect. This is another slightly wider version of the one with the flat, you know, the black one I showed you earlier with the flat tip. This is a slightly bigger version of it. This one is I think this is a weaver one. I'll tell you what brushes I recommend in a minute. But yeah, this is a weaver one. And this is that little tiny tapered, not tapered, but it's got a flat tip as well, which I've recommended for you to apply colour into your outer V. That's this one. This is the flat shader brush, which is good to cut that crease. I'll list all these below, by the way, so you know which is which. This is another flat one, but it's not as flat as this one. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, this one will be great to cut your crease. This one will be great if you want that crease there, like a darker color in the crease, but not cut. This will be perfect for that. So that's the difference. This one is slightly flat, no sorry, this one is slightly flatter than this one, but they're both flat crease brushes, blending brushes. And this bad boy right here is what I call my all-round blending brush. You know, once I'm done with applying my color, I just take this brush and I just use it to pull everything together. Like, it just pulls all the colors together. That's all I use it for. It's too big for anything else. But what it does wonderfully well. Okay? So yeah, this is a Morphe M218. That's all it's good for. But oh boy, does it do a great job of what it's good at. So that's it with the crease brushes, Steve. So now we're going to talk about the pencil brushes. So these are what they look like. And these come in different shapes and sizes, just like all the other brushes. This one is the really fat, chubby pencil brush. This one is a medium-sized pencil brush. And this is a really skinny, very tapered pencil brush. Okay, so basically, the pencil brush is typically used to apply color into the outer V or to highlight the inner corners of your eyes. So I would use this skinny beanie right here to highlight the inner corners of my eyes, and back in the days would use these to deposit color in my outer V. But these days I prefer to use the skinny you know, crease blending brush because I just feel like I get more blending control with the crease brushes because they're fluffier and I can build up color gradually, as opposed to using these whereby I take the color and I just splash it in there and then I have to blend it out, and it's easier to just build up the color gradually. Okay, so that's what these are for. They are designed for you to apply color into those, you know, tighter spots, you know, like the outer V or even the crease, you know, and then to highlight the inner corner of your eyes. But yeah, like I said, I prefer the crease blending brushes for that, the skinny ones, and I will use this really skinny pencil, this skinny pencil brush to apply highlight color into the inner corners of my eyes. That's what I use it for anyway, and it works for me. But you know, there's no rule, there's no law. You do what suits you. But yeah, that's that. So the next set of brushes we're going to look at are what we call the shader brushes. So these are flat shader brushes. They can be angled, they can just be round, and you know, but they are typically used to apply eyeshadow. Okay, so you know, if you want to apply eyeshadow onto your lid, this is what they look like. Okay. Right, so they can come like this. So basically what they are, they're generally flat, flat to the touch like that, or they could be stumpy like this, but I'll talk you through. See, okay, I'll come back to this one, okay? I'll come back to this one, right. I'll just show you a few examples. So this is another stumpy one, not stumpy, sorry, flat. This is a flat angled one. This one is nice for, if you hold it in this angle and you just want to, if you want to get into the corner of your eyes, and you can flip it over and just apply it. It just makes it easier. For example, if I were to go in, for example, with this big chunky one, it might not be the easiest to apply color into the inner corners of my eyes if I'm taking it over my lid. However, if I'm going in with this angled one, it's just easier to apply color onto my lid, especially that corner. And then when I get to this end, I just flip it over and I do the same. Because it just flattens itself against my eye, it just makes the application a whole lot easier. So I prefer, personally, the angle brushes, and then all these type of brushes, these ones right here, I tend to use mostly to apply eyeshadow onto my brow bone, or that's what I tend to use them for. But all these kind of brushes, some are synthetic, like this one is, this one's actually a combination of synthetic and natural hairs, natural bristles, and this one is a smaller one. So again, this one is another one that you could use to get into the inner corner of your eye. If you don't want to use the pencil brush, this will suffice. And then the little stumpy ones like this, let me show you, these really stumpy ones are the ones I prefer to use to apply color underneath my eye. So for example, if you want to smoke out, this is a good brush to do that, apply color under your eyes. Because it's stumpy, you got more control. I know some people use the pencil brush for that as well, but I prefer to use this stumpy brush right here. So those are the flat shader brushes.